westward. The new staff of the public service are frustrated. They are being frustrated by the system that is currently in place. And if the Ministry of Public Service does not see it fitting and urgent to look after a system that is frustrating their own staff, how can anyone believe that systems will be put in place to help the rest of the population? Mr. Speaker, I decided to check with other countries in this hemisphere to see whether public servants are facing the same challenges. I have had conversations with former permanent secretaries from St. Vincent and the Grenadines and senior public servants from Jamaica and St. Lucia. Every time the question arose, each individual was shocked just at the thought of anyone being made to wait 1 month, 3 months without their salary. The individual from Jamaica said, Jamaica? No one from Jamaica would accept that policy. It simply would not fly. Mr. Speaker, I simply cannot find a country that would require their employees to wait 3 months for a salary. It is simply unheard of. Well, in every country except Guyana. Mr. Speaker, during my short period again as Minister of Public Service, I realized that when things become a habit and forms part of the culture of an organization, it is not always easy to shift. It is not always easy to recognize that the old order can no longer work in this new dispensation and changes have to be made. This issue, Mr. Speaker, has outlived whatever usefulness it was able to fulfill when the idea and concept of a 3 months wait was started. Mr. Speaker, I have read the proposed amendments by the current Minister of Public Service. The minister is requesting that the word advises be substituted with encourages, and that the phrase no more than 1 month after the commencement of their employment in public sector be replaced with the words within a reasonable time on receipt of a letter of appointment or a signed contract. Is it that the word advise is too strong? Please let the record show that encourages means to persuade someone to do or continue to do something by giving support or advice. So while the word encourages seem more palatable to those on the other side, it also allows for advice to be given, and thus there is no need for the word to be changed. I, however, hope that the honorable member would be willing to respond to the following question when she takes the floor in relation to her second proposed amendment. What is reasonable? Who will determine what is reasonable? Is 3 months reasonable? 6 months? A year? Who or what will ensure that this reasonable time is adhered to? What systems will be put in place to ensure that the letter of appointment or contract is prepared in a timely manner? Mr. Speaker, there are so many things wrong with these amendments. I'm aware of a public servant who had to wait for over 5 months for their first paycheck while awaiting a government order, so that they could be on their payroll. What they initially wanted to do was to be on the establishment. That is the public service establishment, where you get pension once you retire. They changed their minds after a couple months passed, and there was no government order, and they were on a month-to-month contract awaiting that government order. And they decided to request instead to become a contracted employee. For some reason, Mr. Speaker, that public servant went back to being without a salary for another 4 months while awaiting their contract. I cannot in any way understand person had to go through that process for another 4 months when so this amendment to replace a definite time of 1 month to an indefinite time of reasonable is nothing short, I believe, of as despicable, and suggests that those in charge of the ministry are not either sufficiently concerned about our public servants to recognize that there needs to be some drastic changes in the current structure that exists throughout the public service. Imagine, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Health should have the information of all persons who are training to become nurses. The Ministry of Health would be very quickly informed of who has passed their exams and will soon be added to the staff complement. Yet, Mr. Speaker, these nurses are expected to wait 6 months, sometimes a year, before receiving their first paycheck. Mr. Speaker, Guyana is not the only country in the world with a public service and employees who work for the state. However, Guyana may be the only country who consistently has it as an unwritten policy that public servants must learn to live with waiting months for a paycheck. Mr. Speaker, in the 2022 budget, $8,319,000 was allocated to the Caribbean Center for Development Association and $849,000 to the Commonwealth Association for public administration and management. So the state has access to the necessary resources required to figure out best practices that exist in other countries to better what we have here as a country. So as I conclude at this particular point, I would like us, as the debate begins, to not think of this as a political issue, but the recognition that public servants require more, deserve more, and should get more from the state and from us in this National Assembly. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I now call on the Honorable Member, Mr. Jermaine Figuera, to make his contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this parliament, the life of this parliament, Mr. Speaker, is solely about money and more money. It is not about the people nor the issues that affects the well-being of the average Guyanese citizen. This parliament, Mr. Speaker, and at times it can be said that your very own action, sir, your very own action smacks at what should be the embodiment of democracy on display in this house. I reiterate, sir, this house is a poor demonstration of democracy where the matters and the issues that affects the people are not addressed, and the best decisions to the benefit of them are the end result of robust parliamentary debate cease to exist in this house, Mr. Speaker. Sir, the very proposal by the honorable member, Ms. Tabitha Sarbo Ali, is a proposal of which I believe our request should be one that shouldn't find no political divide on an issue of such importance. Mr. Speaker, if one is to ask the average Guyanese citizen out there, any Guyanese citizen, be it in the public sector or the private sector, if one would have provided their labor, should they have to wait 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, or even a year, as she would have provided as examples to this house for their salary? The Honorable Minister, who was known to being very obnoxious at times in this house, the Honorable Kwame McCoy, he of himself, who would have turned a minister, would have gotten paid the very next month after he would have attempted to provide some level of service to the Guyanese people. All the members in this house, including members on the opposition, Mr. Speaker, have benefited from a fraudulent system, a system that needs fixing, that we are entrusted to serve the Guyanese people, and in giving our service, after 1 month of just coming into this house, we get our salaries. Why then, Mr. Speaker? Why then that the public servants, the people of Guyana, who keeps the engine of government running, has to wait? Why is it that they have to wait, Mr. Speaker, 3 months before they can be compensated? That is not a just position. And I want to believe there are conscious people on the other side of the house who would support or should give support to the honorable member's position, that Guyanese who are frustrated in a system that is flawed should be fixed. And I believe that is the role of government. That is the role of this house, the role of parliament, to make representation that benefits the people of Guyana. And I believe the honorable member's position, Mr. Speaker, is one that is of good common sense. It is a common sense approach that should be adopted unanimously by all members in this House. Fix the flawed system in the public service, Mr. Speaker. And I believe this is a step in the right direction. Mr. Speaker, this motion is timely. It is timely because the world over are being affected by extremely high cost of living. Right here in Guyana, this is our daily reality, Mr. Speaker. It is our daily reality. People are catching hell in this country, and the government is doing nothing to address this situation. And I say, Mr. Speaker, I say fixing the issue in the public sector, Mr. Speaker, will help to address in some little regard the hardship people are facing. People can't afford a pound of sugar. And we have the minister saying that Gaisuka is now producing packet sugar. We want access to all type of sugar. Loose sugar, which the average Guyanese usually buy. They are not being afforded the salaries of ministers to buy packet sugar. So they have to buy loose sugar, and they can't even afford that. And now you are saying to them, if they give the labor, if they give the work, they got to wait 3 months to get their money. Unconscionable. Unconscionable. Fix the system that is flawed. You are installed right now for the time being. And once you are installed right now, fix the system. It is a rigged system and it must be fixed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this government talks about development. And if they are serious about development, fixing this particular issue in the public sector aids in that process of development. Because development should be about the people. People's life should reflect a developed society. People should be able, if the country and the government is serious about development, should know that when they have provided their labor, they would be paid. They would be paid in good time. And I believe the honorable member's proposal is in good time, 1 month. So accept this position. Mr. Speaker, when a person who works and has to wait for 3 months in this climate where cost of living is so high, the issue that this government don't want to address, that is of national importance to both sides of the political divide. Our supporters are gravely being affected, and your supporters are gravely affected, Mr. Speaker. And I find it rather worrisome that this government, who claims to care about the people of this country, don't want to address the issue that is affecting the masses of Guyanese. High cost of living is affecting every citizen in this country, and the government must put measures in place to address it. I hear the government minister, Mr. McCoy, who's very distracting, and I wish the speaker would protect me. I am saying, Mr. Speaker, the government has indicated that they have put some measures in place. And I hear them. But has these measures had a trickle-down effect to the benefit of the people? When you go to the supermarket with all of the taxes they have said they have removed, how is it that the people, the average citizen, are benefiting when they go to the stores, when they go to the stores, when they go to the little shops in the communities? How is it that this so-called trickle-down effect is benefiting the average citizen? It is not, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, the government has to look at other measures that the people of Guyana will be the ultimate beneficiary of these relief that they're claiming is towards a relief program for the average Guyanese that are being affected. And I say those measures are good, but are they having a ripple effect to the benefit of the people. And I say to you, no. The people who are benefiting from your measures are the people in the private sector. And even those persons, this salary that is right now affecting people who would have provided their labor, they are trying, while they are waiting to get this salary, other ways to cushion the hardship of the reality of the times of high cost of living. You know what some of them are doing? They are setting up kitchen gardens, Mr. Speaker. Those who have lands are farming those lands, but they need more assistance. They need assistance, Mr. Speaker. And the government would have indicated that they would have given relief to farmers. Yes, that is so. But we have a list of hundreds of Guyanese farmers who are discriminated against. I have a list of farmers in Region 10, Mr. Speaker, who have real farms, and they would have been affected and did not benefit from the relief government said they were given to farmers. The government needs to stop this discriminatory approach when it comes to distributing the resources, Guyanese resources, to Guyanese citizens, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we would like this government to help our farmers. Give our farmers more access to land. Give our farmers access to land. The president has come to this nation and tell us that he has given Guyanese lands to Barbadians. When Guyanese have applications, thousands of applications at Lands and Survey, and they can't have access to their own resources. I am saying, if this government is serious, give Guyanese lands, Mr. Speaker. And we will soon be debating the hemp bill. If we are going to make the hemp bill a budding new industry in this country, people need land. And I say to this government, give Guyanese access to lands before any other. No foreigner should have lands in this country above Guyanese. Mr. Speaker, you have a proud record. Your record is tainted. It is tainted because it's not helping the Guyanese people in this country. Mr. Speaker, government.
Honorable member, just give me one moment to call on the members from the government side who are shouting across the assembly to tone down your volume. Honorable member, you may continue.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for your protection. You see, not everyone can handle the truth, you know. It is the truth. It is the truth they are hearing that is affecting them. But the Guyanese people must never be denied from hearing the truth. And as representatives on this side of the house, we will always bring the truth to the Guyanese people. No matter how disruptive you are, Member Kwame McCoy, no matter how disruptive you are. Mr. Speaker, we are saying, Mr. Speaker, if the government cannot give in a fair and equitable manner the distribution of resources to all Guyanese who are deserving, then come up with another program. If you don't want to give everybody the people's money, give every household, Mr. Speaker, as I would have indicated, access to land. Give farmers in this country, because cost of living is high. And if we are to bring down cost of living, Mr. Speaker, it requires farmers farming more. It requires farmers farming more. So how are we going to help our farmers farm more, Mr. Speaker? By using a common sense approach. And one is it, I say to this government, give our farmers more land, give our farmers access roads to those lands, give our farmers subsidize fertilizer, and most importantly, in my view, Mr. Speaker, give our farmers crop and livestock insurance. Because we have seen how farms are ravaged by flood. And I say, if those farmers, Mr. Speaker, had crop insurance backed by the government, they would have been able to get back on their feet automatically, Mr. Speaker. Give them livestock insurance so they don't have to wait and wait and wait. They can invest far more, knowing full well that the government is backing them, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, public servants need help. Public servants need help. And many of them, yes, finally, many of them have ventured into small businesses. Many of them, Mr. Speaker. And the government has indicated that they're giving small business grants. Many of those public servants who have registered businesses and have attempted to venture out to become entrepreneurs because the government ain't helping nobody. They ain't giving no public servants any increase. So people want to be entrepreneurs in this country. And that is why they would have registered small businesses with the hope that the government will provide them with their own resources to make those small businesses grow. But what? The government had a discriminatory approach when it came to the distribution of those small business grants. In Linden, Mr. Speaker, when the government shipped in, bust in their people and put them under a big tent under the Watuka Club, they brought people all out of Region 10 and they gave away those grants that were deserving to be given to Linden small businesses. You know, Mr. Speaker, this is what this government does. The trinkets, the handful of Lindeners that were there, some of those were so-called big-time contractors, big-time promoters, families and friends received this grant, and they don't even have a business, some of them, Mr. Speaker. That is a discriminatory approach this government is doing. So, Mr. Speaker, I say help our public servants who are desirous of coming out of the government system because they're aware that this is an uncaring government. Help them to become entrepreneurs. The government, Mr. Speaker, and you know, it is real sad, Mr. Speaker, that the people in the permanent establishment in the public sector have to wait so long to get their money. And then to curb the issue of unemployment in this country, that is extremely high. And the government would have promised 50,000 jobs, and their quick fixes is temporary jobs at $40,000 a month. Part-time jobs, same things, it's semantics. The fact of the matter is that is not the solution to curb unemployment in this country. But you know what we said, Mr. Speaker? We have said to our young people, we have said to the Guyanese people who are struggling in this country to take those temporary jobs, as the member wanted to be referred to as. Take it. After all, it is taxpayers' money. $40,000 a month cannot be sufficient to sustain a family, but it brings a minute relief, probably for 3 days, Mr. Speaker, given the height of cost of living in this country. Take it. But, Mr. Speaker, you have given young people $40,000 a month, and you plug them into the fixed establishment, the fixed system. You put them in the teaching service, you put them in the healthcare sector, you put them in the system that requires some degree of training. So when you put a young person at the school, what is it that they're doing? When you put them in the healthcare sector, what is it that they're doing when they have no training? And that is why the public school college that the coalition government would have instituted was ideal to prepare young people to get involved in the public sector, Mr. Speaker. They would have been trained They would have gotten on-the-job experience so that when they are placed into the system, they are equipped to service the system correctly. But now we have a lot of people in the system getting $40,000 a month, but they don't know what to do. Headless chickens in the place. So, Mr. Speaker, we need to bring back the public service college to train young people to be prepared to go back into the public service, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this $40,000, if this government is serious about helping young people and cushioning the high cost of living and more so bringing about some level of food security, I would have advised the government, Mr. Speaker, to take this $40,000 that they give to a young person, group 20 of them together. If you bring 20 of these young people together and you give them $40,000, Mr. Speaker, it is equivalent to $800,000 a month. And if you are to multiply that by 12, it equates to $9.6 million a month. I am saying, Mr. Speaker, don't wait for the whole year for these young people. Bring them now together in a group of 20. Give them this $9.6 million now and say to them, go and establish a chicken farm, Mr. Speaker. You know what that will do? You know what that will do, Mr. Speaker? It will, that 9.6 will be able to build that farm. It will be able to provide the chicks and the feed for that farm. For 6 weeks, young people will be able to make a profit far superseding that $40,000 that this government is offering. You know what it will continue to do? It will teach them business and entrepreneurship. It will keep them, Mr. Speaker, permanently employed, while at the same time, Mr. Speaker, you know what that will do? It will contribute to lowering the cost of food in this country. Because those young people who has that farm in that particular community will be able to sell the produce to the residents of that community at a cheaper cost. And the amount of money in profits those young people will be able to make, they will be in a position to employ more young people. That is job security. That is teaching young people business. And that is contributing to bringing down the high cost of living and contributing to food security in this country. Mr. Speaker, this government has no plan for Guyana's youth. It has no plan in solving unemployment in this country. It has no plan in solving crime in this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are in support of the honorable member's position with regards to ensuring that our public servants, when they are employed by government, to be paid within the shortest possible of time, when they would have given their service to any agency of government, Mr. Speaker. It is a common sense approach. It is a humane approach. If people work, why do they have to wait 3 months to get their salary? In such an environment where the cost of living is affecting every Guyanese citizen, especially those who aren't ministers of the government, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to give my unanimous support to my colleague who would have put forward this position to government. I believe it is a position that shouldn't even be debated upon. It is one that should be accepted. Why? Because it is a position that every Guyanese would support. If you go into the streets, Mr. Speaker, if you go into the streets, you go to the marketplace, and you ask any Guyanese randomly, if you work for 1 month, should you wait to be paid 3 months after? Of course not. The answer would be a resounding no. So therefore, Mr. Speaker, this is a position that every Guyanese would support, and I trust that good sense would prevail, and the government would jump on the bandwagon with the opposition and support this position articulated so eloquently by my colleague, and give your unanimous support in ensuring that this comes into being and becomes a Guyanese reality. I thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. Honorable members, before I call on the next speaker, let me join with you in recognizing the Honorable Richard Allen, the former Member of Parliament, with us today. Our next speaker is the Honorable Minister of the Public Service, the Honorable Member, Ms. Sonia Parak.
Mr. Speaker, let me start by saying that this government unequivocally values public servants. They value their time, their effort, and all that they do to keep the wheels of government turning. And so, Mr. Speaker, myself, I would have moved, or I'm going to move, an amendment that was distributed in Parliament to the motion that was raised by the honorable member. And it states, Mr. Speaker, be it resolved clause, delete word advises in first line and substitute with encourages. Be it resolved clause, delete the phrase no more than 1 month after the commencement of their employment in public sector, and replace with the words within a reasonable time on receipt of a letter of appointment or a signed contract. Mr. Speaker, even before I get into this particular or the debate of this motion, I wish to stand here as I'm standing right now on a point of order, standing order that is, 41-6. We stand here and the opposition members come here and they say they don't want to make this political. But yet, the first thing that comes out of the honorable member's mouth, Mr. Figueroa, is an attack on abuse on the speaker. And I am going to raise 41-6 and stand on that point of order, because it is absolutely ridiculous that you can come here and say that the speaker have done so. We also stand here, or the member of the opposition also stand on the other side and says,
Mr. Speaker, I stand on 41-6.
Just honorable member Mr. Figueroa, honorable member Minister, let me hear the 41-6.
Mr. Speaker, the honorable minister is imputing improper motive towards me, and I trust that she would stick to the matter at hand and debate.
Honorable member Mr. Figueroa, I don't agree with your interpretation of 41-6. Honorable Minister, please continue.
Thank you. The honorable member may shout on the other side that we are not sticking to what is before us, yet 3/4 of his presentation was not on the motion. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member, Mr. Tabitha Sarabo-Halley, stated that as the Minister of Public Service, she wanted to be able to see persons being paid timely. She said now that she wants to see them being paid within a month. But the honorable member sat in the very office that I now sit for approximately a year. And so I figured that she would gather what the process is. Mr. Speaker, this government does not want to see public servants waiting 3 months to be paid. They do not want to even see public servants wait for 2 months to be paid. Mr. Speaker, there is a process in place that if you are on a new employment list or recruitment and has to go through a process, that first of all, the agency has to submit your name. That has to be done in a timely manner. There are credentials and other documents that have to be submitted by a new public servant or someone who's entering the public service. And you have to get those documents also within a timely manner through multiple agencies. So when you get to the Ministry of Public Service, you go through several agencies before you get there. And what is a fact, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, for your information, is that even when persons are waiting for their approval, agencies such as the regional bodies and other ministries would pay an advance. They will place them on a temporary employment so that they can be paid while waiting. So that is a system that is in place right now. You see, the unfortunate thing for the opposition, please, Mr. Speaker, is that I am actually in the driving seat at the moment, so I know what is factually happening. When we come here and we speak on the other side, we bring a lot of hearsay to the House and say that I cannot say this and I cannot say that because it's for security reasons. Mr. Speaker, every public servant that has come to the Ministry of Public Service, we have tried within a timely manner to be able to get those persons their salaries. That obviously involves a multi-agency collaboration. So, Mr. Speaker, let's get our facts straight before we come here and we want to throw out to the public servants the government does not care. This is absolute rubbish. The government has, as a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, for 5 years, or almost 5 years, the opposition was in government. And I heard the honorable member, Mr. Figueroa, we need to take care of this and we need to take care of that, but yet nothing was done in the 5 years to remedy the situation, absolutely nothing. And I can say that a circular was put out by the honorable member. Mr. Speaker, I am not afraid to say it, stand here. I am not afraid to stand here and say that the honorable member, Ms. Halley, put out a circular in December of 2019 in which she said that persons were reporting to her ministry at the time that they were waiting 3 months for salaries and that she wanted it to be seized. And that was all the circular basically said. There was no timeline placed to assist public servants. Mr. Speaker, based on our amendment, I am saying that we are going to work collaboratively with all agencies to ensure that within a reasonable time after the request has been sent, to be able to get persons their salaries. So I stand here today and I take offense to everything that has been said, because this government, whether be it public servants, whether be it farmers, whether be it the vulnerable groups, the senior citizens, the young children, this government from day one has been in all of the regions and villages of this country trying to assist and have been assisting. But I suppose it becomes a threat to the opposition when we are doing what we have to do for the people. It is also no secret that the opposition is affected by the government being in places like Region 10, like Buxton, like Mocha, and all of those places, treating all of the citizens equally as they deserve. So that is why half of my honorable friend, Mr. Figueroa's presentation was based on cost of living. That is why he deviated from what the motion was, because he wants to carry a narrative that this government is doing nothing to help people, when in fact, our work is showing for itself. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister within the Office of the President with responsibility for finance will come and speak on this issue as well. And I am very certain that he also will come to tell public servants that he has been putting a system in place to assist. So all agencies will be collaborating to ensure that public servants get their salaries within a reasonable time. And I am to say this, Mr. Speaker, that while we absolutely agree that no public servant should wait 3 months for their salaries, the honorable member could not, as a sitting minister, put a time frame of 1 month as she wants to do in opposition now, because she understood at that time what the process was to be able to have salaries paid out to new employees. So where there are bottlenecks, we will look at those bottlenecks. And I find it quite disappointing that we had a whole conversation about how public servants want to pass through the PSC. Well, let me say this. As the minister who has received the information, public servants want to either be on the fixed establishment or they want to be on contract, as is allowed by the public service rules. It is a prerogative that they have. And it is a prerogative that we are going to allow public servants to have. That is one. Two, I am also disappointed that the honorable member said that persons are not being passed through the fixed establishment. In all of the almost 5 years that the APNU AFC sat in office, persons were deliberately not passed through the PSC, and that information is on hand. And that was a PSC that was headed by, and it was your government that controlled it at the time. Public servants were left off. So I find it quite dishonest that the honorable member will come here to say that this government is trying to prevent persons from passing through the fixed establishment. Mr. Speaker, they have the right to go on contract if they want, and this government has been allowing that. So employment has been taking place. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Mr. Ganesh Mahipal seems to think that he doesn't embarrass the entire country when he speaks, but he does. Whether it be in opposition or in government. Mr. Speaker, again, I stand here to tell you that also a problem that existed while the APNU AFC was in office, but did nothing to fix it. Agencies and ministries continue to employ persons physically without the approval of the Ministry of Public Service, without the approval of the relevant ministry. So when you have a request, when you have someone sitting in a position for 4 months and then you send a request for approval, approval comes to the Ministry of Public, gets to the Ministry of Public Service 3 or 4 months after. The ministry approves. You go to the Ministry of Finance, you go back to the agency, then it goes to the Ministry of Finance to be placed on the payroll. That caused a delay. All of those things, Mr. Speaker, we are trying to remedy as a government. That existed then. Nothing was done to cure that, which caused a major problem or the majority of the issues that surrounded the payment of salaries, the timely payment of salaries to public servants. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to assure, and I move again, that this honorable House sees that the amendment is relevant, sees that the amendment that is proposed by myself and the government of Guyana be appropriate in terms of the timely payment of public servants based on what we can remedy in the system, based on the system itself and the process as we have agency, multi-agency collaboration. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Before I call the next speaker, the Honorable Member, Ms. Nina Flo Best, please join me in welcoming Professor Vishwani Mahadio Heads and her son, Ishan Mahadio Heads. They are the sister and nephew of the Honorable Member, Dr. Vishwa Mahadio. Professor Vishani Mahadio Heads is a very distinguished researcher and is now credited with the discovery of the BM-3G gene, which contributes to forms of breast cancer. Our other guests today, Professor Vishwani and her son Ishan. Honorable Member, Ms. Nina Flo Best.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I must say, before I begin my presentation, that once again, I'm here at Parliament and I'm very disappointed that we continue to endure the ignorance that Mr. McCoy, Honorable Member, Mr. McCoy, continues to display in this House. The nation is watching. When are we going to get it right? And it's very sad, it's very saddening to know that our young people can have.
But Honorable Member, I have no problem with you citing anyone, but I have a big problem with you use of the word ignorance. I know the formal meaning of ignorance is lack of information, but the connotation also is something we need to take into account. Go ahead, Honorable Member.
I'm so guided. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just listened to the Honorable Minister made some presentation. I would like to take this opportunity to remind all of us that when we took the oath of office, we said, I do hereby solemnly declare that I will bear true faith and allegiance and serve the people without affection and ill will. So if you go to Buxton, you go to Linden, and you go to Mocha Arcadia and not Mocha, to serve the people, it's your responsibility. You're in government and you are responsible for serving all people, regardless of where they're located. That shouldn't be something that you should stand here to say as though like you're doing us a favor. You're serving the people of Guyana. That is expected of you. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to point out that even as the minister spoke earlier, it appears to me that she's questioning Ms. Halley's work that is being done. No, she's the sitting minister. So if there's an issue, she gotta fix it. Comrade, Honorable Member. Mr. Speaker, it's amazing to hear the statement that this government values public servants. And yet still, because of this great value, we would like to have an amendment to say reasonable time, or when you receive a signed contract. Why is it that in this time and this day of technology, that we cannot have systems implemented where you use DocuSign, HelloSign, Adobe Reader, or SignWell or something, that the documents can be signed and passed to all the agencies and eliminate the entire dead process that takes place for 3 months. I would expect that in the time of technology that we use it so that we can improve our system to help our public servants. But Mr. Speaker, in all the utterance that the Honorable Member McCoy carry on with, you know what he said while Ms. Haley was presenting, Comrade Haley? It's an old country, so what do you expect? That tells a lot. Mr. Speaker, Genesis 3:19 says, by the sweat of your brow, you will eat your food until you return to the ground. The sad thing about it, Mr. Speaker, is that when people sweat in the public service, they have to wait until 3 months to eat from their sweat. Is that fair? Is that right? No, Mr. Speaker. How important is our salary? How important is the timing for which one must receive their salary? Why do people work? All these questions, Mr. Speaker, are important and deserves an answer. More so, Mr. Speaker, with the current situation of the high cost of living in Guyana, it is absolutely necessary that the public servants be paid within the 1 month so that they will not be led into poverty and suffering. Mr. Speaker, the high cost of living in Guyana has women, mothers, pensioners, fathers who face the markets daily complaining about the prices. Mr. Speaker, a pound of milk from $400 to $880. A small oil from $360 to $800. A butter from $400 to $700. Rice from $1,400 to $1,800 for a 10 kg pack. A 1 kg flour from $300 to $500, and all the prices keep climbing. Now, Mr. Speaker, could you imagine the main caregiver of a family applies for a job in the public service and have to provide all of this for their household, and yet have to wait 3 months to receive their salary? Mr. Speaker, what are we doing to our people? What are we doing to our children? What are we doing to our pensioners? What are we doing when we have them to wait a whole 3 months to be paid, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, being the main provider of a family and being employed in the public service and having to wait 3 months simply means that, one, the children will have poor nutrition and every possible family member. The mother or father that leaves home to go to work will probably go to work hungry or not well fed, and they have to perform the duties. Mr. Speaker, it simply means that they will eat less. And like I said, milk gone up. Only yesterday I was in the supermarket, and you recognize that milk is now $880, which means that if the person working in the public service cannot afford to give the babies or the children milk, what is happening? We need to do better. We need to fix the system and fix it now, not when we think it's a reasonable time, but now, because of the current situation that exists in our country. Mr. Speaker, as a representative of the East Bank, and of some places that Mr. McCoy, honorable member, visits frequently, we can talk about what is happening to persons in those areas who might be employed in the public service and have to wait 3 months to collect their salaries. Mr. Speaker, I refer to the community of Laluni, which is at the back of Kurukuru. To get out of there currently, Mr. Speaker, for the last 2 years, I spoke about the roads. Nothing has been done to fix the roads. Absolutely nothing has been done to fix the roads. Mr. Speaker, because of the current situation, The residents in that area is now paying $3,000 for a taxi to come out from where they are to the highway, $3,000 to go back. Now just imagine, Mr. Speaker, if someone from the Luni has joined the teaching profession and have to come out every day, let's say to Kurukuru Primary to teach. Look at the cost that they will have to endure, and then yet still, Mr. Speaker, they will not be paid in a timely manner. They have to wait 3 months. Mr. Speaker, let's think about it. Is that fair? It cannot be fair. It's not right, because that individual calculates $6,000 for 5 days a week is already $30,000. Plus, Mr. Speaker, they will have to get things to eat. Who is standing the cost? Where will they get the money? Mr. Speaker, at this time, it's very difficult for them to go to the neighbor next door and ask for some assistance, or to go to a family member, because we all living in the high cost of living in Guyana. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, it is absolutely necessary that there be an improvement in this system, and within 1 month, persons being employed in this system can be paid. Mr. Speaker, I want to give another example. The people living up the Demoir River, another area where the Honorable Mr. McCoy loves to frequent. He gets his free fuel to drive the boat past all the villages to go where he has to go. But yet still, Mr. Speaker, the persons in that area have to get 5 gallons of fuel to come out with their personal boats. Now I'm thinking, Mr. Speaker, what happens if someone joins the police force and they're working at Timeri Station right to the dock? We going far, you know, right at the dock. That individual got to find $5,830 to put fuel in the boat to get out to work at the station. But just imagine, they have to wait 3 months to get paid. What is happening there? Mr. Speaker, could you imagine? And then, Mr. Speaker, just imagine if that individual has a family to take care of, a baby who needs pampers, who needs milk, who needs to get the food, baby food, who needs to get sugar. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, I'm very saddened. I couldn't find sugar yesterday on the East Bank, only white sugar at one supermarket, and I drove the entire East Bank. Mr. Speaker, this is the reality on the ground. We cannot allow our public servants to wait a whole 3 months to get paid. It is not fair. It is not right. The system must be fixed. Mr. Speaker, this unfair practice needs to be looked at urgently. Why, Mr. Speaker? When we think about the PS or the ministers or the chief or main administrators in the office, look at the reality. 1, they will get free transportation. 2, they will drink all the free drink from in the fridge, all the free water, all the free snacks they will enjoy. If they have a workshop, Mr. Speaker, they carry home dinner for the family, lunch for the children, all of that. But the ordinary staff, who might be just the driver, driving the vehicle, or might be the cleaner who's sweeping inside the office, gotta wait a whole 3 months, Mr. Speaker, to be paid. That is so unfair, Mr. Speaker, and that is why it's absolutely necessary that the system be fixed. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, it can be fixed with technology. It can be fixed with technology. Mr. Speaker, when we think also of the unfair practices that carries on in the offices, the cleaner may not be able to ask the minister for a raise. The staff, the secretary may not be able to leave there and go to the Chinese supermarket and ask for credit. They will have to bear the burden of providing for their household within that 3 months period. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I call on this government, if they truly, as the minister openly said, care or value the public servants, that they will employ technology to improve the system and to ensure that the public servants are paid within 1 month. In closing, Mr. Speaker, I give support for this motion by my honorable member, and I say to you, as Carlos Tevez said, salary matter should not be told to everyone. It's a matter of respect, and let us respect our public servants. I thank you.
Thank you, honorable member. Honorable members, this is a good time to take a suspension for 1 hour.